Hello and welcome to Love Muslims Critique Islam Part 9. Has the Quran been corrupted? Throughout this series of videos, I'll be sharing with you the truth about Islam that you just won't get from the mainstream media and you won't get from Muslims. So let me reveal to you the secrets Imams don't want you to know and take you on a journey of absolute truth and answer the question, has the Quran been corrupted? Islam claims the Quran is eternal, sent down by Allah, compiled in 652 AD and remains unchanged ever since and is unique. But can they prove it? Well, we know now that Muhammad didn't write the Quran as he was illiterate and nothing was written down at the time of his living. So who did and how did it come about? There's nothing written down of Muhammad's revelations at the time of his death in 632 AD, and we can assume that there must have been a sense of urgency at the time when it became apparent that there was a need to get things written down soon, whilst the people that could remember his teaching had, in effect, the Quran in their heads, were not dying in battle and remained alive as raiding and pillaging continued across the region. Hastily, they inscribed what they could remember onto stalks and stones before it was lost completely, and manuscripts were compiled by the first Caliphate, Abu Bakr, and Umar, the second Caliphate, and by his daughter Hafsa. Uthman Ibrahim Affan, a rich, powerful merchant, was the third caliph. He orders 4 compilers to rewrite Hafsa's codex to make a perfect copy, but already 19 years after Muhammad's death, we see changes. Islam tells us that the Quran is perfect, but Uthman has other ideas and has already decided that it wasn't, and makes changes to what has already been written. All discarded material was burnt, so he has assumed authority to determine what material is destroyed and what survives. But, Muslims tell us that Muhammad was the last prophet, and only a prophet could get revelation from God. But Uthman, who never claimed to be one, somehow declared himself appropriate to edit Allah's divine word. Once complete, he sent copies to 9 provinces, but all have since been lost. So the answer to the question, who wrote the Quran? The answer is nobody knows. Islam also tells us that a large part of the Quran may be lost. Says Sahih al-Bukhari 6509. Uthman then ordered that all other Quranic materials, whether written in fragmentary manuscripts or whole copies, to be burnt. And that is or said in Sahih al-Bukhari 6510. Islamic text and commentaries give us an insight in how the Quran became recompiled and the confusing and chaotic way in which it was put together, with some comical reasons as to why some verses were left out. So let's play a game. Shall we guess what happened to the Quran? So here we go then. Some verses were lost in the memory of those who had already died in battle. And we read this in the Hadith Ibn Abi Dawud, Kitab al-Masahif. It's on page 23. It says this: many of the passages of the Quran that were sent down were known by those who died on the day of Yamama. They were not known by those who survived them, nor where they were written down, nor had Abu Bakr, Umar or Uthman by that time collected the Quran, nor where they found and even one person after them. And some verses simply disappeared. As we read this in Islamic text, let none of you say, I have acquired the whole of the Quran. How does he know what all of it is when much of the Quran has disappeared? Rather, let him say, I have acquired what has survived. Some verses were forgotten. We read this in Islamic text. We used to recite a surah which resembled in length and severity to Surah Barat. I have, however, forgotten it, with the exception of this, which I remember out of it. If there were two valleys full of riches for the son of Adam, he would long for a third valley, and nothing would fill the stomach of the son go Adam but dust. Some verses were cancelled. And we used to read a verse of the Quran revealed in their connection, but later the verse was cancelled. It was conveyed to our people on our behalf the information that we have met our Lord and he is pleased with us and has made us pleased. Then we read that in the Hadith Sahih Bukhari. And some verses were missing. As we read this in the Hadith Sahih Bukhari again, Allah sent Muhammad saw with the truth and revealed the holy book to him. And among what Allah revealed was the verse of Rajam, the stoning of the married persons, male and female, who commit adultery. And we did recite this verse and understood and memorized it. Allah's apostle Saul did carry out the punishment of stoning, and so did we after him. I am afraid that after a long time has passed, something will say, by Allah, we do not find the verse of the Rajam in Allah's book, and thus they will go astray by leaving an obligation which Allah has revealed. And some verses were just simply overlooked, just simply not written down. And some verses were changed, and here we read about Aisha, Muhammad's child bride, taking authority and deciding what goes into the Quran. Some verses were modified. Altogether, I think Al-Hajjaj Ibrahim Yusuf made 11 modifications in the reading of the Uthmanic text. And some verses were substituted, so Allah's word does not seem to be consistent. But Allah said, none of our revelations do we abrogate or cause to be forgotten, but we substitute something better or similar. So they put in what they willed. And my favorite of all is some verses were eaten by sheep, as described by Aisha. Once again, she says that the verse of stoning and of breastfeeding an adult 10 times was revealed, and the paper was with me under my pillow. When the messenger of Allah died, we were preoccupied with his death, and a tame sheep came in and ate it. Oh, a little bit careless, I think. Muslims like to remind us that the Quran has not been altered, edited, or tampered with since its beginning. But why did Uthman decide to be the editor-in-chief of the Quran when it was supposed to be perfect? They call it a preserved text, and that the Arabic script is the same today as in the days of the Prophet. But Arabic then had no diacritical or vowelization grammatical marks, and therefore had to evolve to accommodate the text. So Allah had apparently chosen to release his final word in a language that needed to be developed. Leading Muslim scholars agree we no longer have the Uthman originals that were, in any case, hastily arranged and first written on vegetation and stone. But if Uthman standardized the text, why is it that we have over 30 different Qurans today? And the earliest Qurans that we do have are from the 8th century. That is the Topkapi in Turkey, the Samarkand in Uzbekistan, the Petropolitanus in Paris, the Mahil in London, Al-Husaynis in Cairo, and the Sana in Yemen. And they're all dated from the mid-18th century and are not from the Uthman period. Dr. Tayyar Al-Tikulak, a leading scholar in Quranic studies in Turkey, he cites the grammatical and scribal mistakes, including spelling errors in those scripts that I showed you earlier, the Topkapi and the Samarkand, those that were dated from the mid-8th century and not from the Uthman period. Now, the Samarkand, we saw a few slides before. He continues to say was written by somebody with little experience and was with different writing skills and styles, and it only goes up to Surah 43, so there's therefore not complete. There are similar problems of grammatical mistakes with the other 8th century earliest Qurans that we have that you saw before. So Dr. Atikulak and other Islamic scholars, some names I'm not going to even try to pronounce, but no, they do make a serious point, and that is a brave confession. Now, what they're saying is that the earliest Qurans that we have today, some you saw earlier, they have grammatical mistakes and other errors, so therefore cannot be relied upon. And these, indeed, these codices are not from the original Uthman period. So therefore, not only do we not have the original Qurans, the oldest Qurans that we do have cannot be relied upon and contain fundamental mistakes. So the serious point is that for any Muslim to admit this is very difficult for them, because any Muslim will tell you that the Quran is eternal, sent down from Allah, untouched by human hands, with no corrections or corruptions. So any Muslim scholar must be extremely careful when contradicting or disproving a popular Muslim myth. So for any Muslim to say these things in public is truly extremely brave, and as they are sticking their neck out, it is therefore worthy of note to the outside world. So this is serious business. So there we have it. Next time I shall be looking at dating issues in more detail and explaining how the original text is impossible to read today. So please subscribe, and in the meantime I'll say bye bye for now. Bye bye.